Hello and welcome to the first episode of Koteri College. My name's Roosh and I'll be your professor. What is Koteri College? I talked to some fans online about what they want to learn and what they struggle with. And the thing I came to realize was that the things that I learned in school really helped me to get to where I am right now. I was mostly self-taught. I took art classes when I was like 6 years old till maybe 9 or 10. And then I took a break until I was 19. And during that time, I did a lot of self-studying. I'd find artists on DeviantArt, Kim Jung-gi, and all sorts of Korean artists. And I would just try to replicate their style and learn from them. And then when I went to animation college, that's where I really got drilled into me all the things that I know now. The things that you probably notice in my work, such as anatomy, drapery, character creation, all that kind of stuff. So I thought, why not share with you guys what I learned in college? I want to make you guys the best artists that you can be. And I genuinely enjoy talking to you guys, figuring out how I could make you guys better. So I'm going to break this into a couple of classes. We're going to start off with anatomy, but then later on we're going to move on to stuff like character design and making your own comic. The goal is to make you guys the best artists that you can possibly be. So for this episode, we're going to start off with anatomy of one of my favorite things to draw, the arm. And I'm going to break it down into the parts, what that you need to study, how you need to study, and how often you need to study. This here is free for you guys to view. It should help out a lot, but I will also be giving out homework, but the homework is only for you who are on my Patreon. So if you want the full experience, you hop onto my Patreon, $3 a month, and I'll be dishing out assignments similar to what I got dished out in college to help you improve and become the best artist that you can be. So without further ado, let's move on to lesson 1, anatomy of the arm. All right, so I suggest that for anyone who wants to study, that you take paper, pencil, you study it the traditional way. You can definitely do it digitally too, using a Cintiq or your iPad, but I think the surefire method is just the simple paper, pencil, or pen, whichever. So when it comes to anatomy, you gotta start with the basic of the most basic, and that is starting with the skeleton. It doesn't matter how much of the muscles you know if you don't have a base to put it on. So we start with the bones. When it comes to the arm, it's pretty simple. So I want to start off by drawing the humerus. So I always pull up reference next to me so I can see what I'm doing. Don't try to draw from imagination when you don't know what it is that you're drawing. So we got the humerus, we got the elbow joint, the forearm, which includes the radius. And why it's called the radius is very simple, because it allows your arm to radiate from supination to pronation. The radius, and then we get the ulna. You can see it's fairly rough, very quick. I'm not trying to spend too long on this. I'm trying to soak in the information, and it's not about just doing it once and going on to the next thing. It's about doing it repeatedly over and over and over again. Label it. So we got the humerus, we got the radius, and we got the ulna. We gotta connect the humerus to the scapula. So the scapula has its own set of names too. This is the acromion process. How you can remember that, and one way our teacher taught us, is that crows like to rest on it. So that's the acromion process, and then we have the coracoid process, and that's how these look like later on. I'm just putting in, see these lines? It's just to give me ideas of like kind of sticks out, it kind of goes in. Like I'll shade this part just so I know that it's kind of coming towards us, all right? So we'll call this we'll put that the scapula. Knowing the names is very important. The clavicle. There you go. The hands itself, to be honest, I still don't remember all the bones because there are so many. But it's just important to keep in mind the general shape here, because it can get very, very confusing. Here, these carpals have some crazy names like pisiform and humulus of the hamate, triquetrum, trapezium, right? I don't expect you to know all of those. I don't know the names of all of these. But it is very important to know the names of the bones, the muscles. It's like when you go to a mechanic and you ask them to fix your car, and they tell you, oh, there's a problem in the engine. You're like, what in the engine is there a problem with? And they're like, it's that, that little doodad over there next to that dangly thing. You're like, what? And chances are they have no idea what they're talking about. And I see a lot of artists who are really good, but they say that it's not important to know the names of every single muscle and know the names of the skeletons and all that. And I think, yes, it's not important to know the names of everything, but I think it is very important that you should try to know the names of everything. Because the more you know, the more confident you are, right? And this is the arm facing towards us, so that we're looking at the chest basically. So I'm going to draw this from the back, scapular spine, that goes into the acromion process, and then you can see the coracoid on the other side, and you can see the clavicle coming in from the other side. All right, and then we go into the humerus. All right, go down. Sticks out from the inside. You see this part right here that sticks out over here? You'll always notice that's called a landmark, right? There's parts of the body where it just doesn't matter how skinny or muscular you are. Like for instance, you can feel that pointy part of your elbow, and that's the humerus sticking out from the inside. There you come in. Got the ulna now. Radius. So the ulna starts thick and goes thin, while the radius starts thin and goes thick later on. So reverse. So thick to thin, thin to thick. Then we do the carpals again. I'm just going to rough this in. I just want the general shape of it. I don't really need to know exactly how all of these look individually. Is that important? If I was drawing zombies and skeletons repeatedly, then yes, I would say remember all of this. But so far, I'm not drawing zombies that often. But if I ever decide to do a story where I am drawing zombies repeatedly, then I will put more effort into remembering that. But for now, I just want to know the general shape. And then we do the metacarpals. 1, 2, 3, and the radius, scapula, spine of the scapula, and all of that. All right. So earlier I said there's supination and there's pronation. Basically, supination, imagine your arm asking for soup. May I have some more? So here, this is supination. Pronation is this, where you rotate your arm over. And what ends up happening is that the radius ends up doing its job, getting you to rotate over. But what's happening inside is that the radius is overlapping the ulna. So we're going to draw this in. Here's the humerus. That's the radius, and this is the ulna over here. We're trying to draw an arm over it. X-ray vision. All right, quick and easy. So this is a supinated position. basically just asking for a nice hot bowl of soup. All this will be up on my Patreon, better quality for you guys to study. And now I'm going to do pronation. Notice the humerus will stay in the exact same position, but it's just the radius. The radius has this, at the top, there's this kind of like a cylinder shaped part of the bone that allows it to rotate in the spot. So, thin to thick. That's the ulna. The ulna, this part, that sticks out. You can feel it quite easily. It's right there. So, there we go. And now the thumb is facing the other direction. There we go. We have the bones of the arm. So we can do a little review. The humerus, the radius, the ulna. Those are the main bones of the arm. The humerus connects to the scapula, the coracoid process, and there's the acromion process that connects to the clavicle, and then you got the carpals, metacarpals, and the phalanxes, right? They're in there. Supination, pronation. So now what I do is I have this, and I want to end up just drawing it for myself just so I do not forget, right? I don't necessarily need reference for this part. I'm just gonna draw this without reference. So that's the humerus, radius. I'm just thin to thick. Remember saying this. I am not looking at reference right now. I'm just trying to put down on paper what I just learned. Clavicle, boop, boop, goes there. The acromion process. There's the coracoid process inside. Just put on paper what I just learned. Let's do another one. Very quick, simpler. Bone humerus sticking out on the inside. This one's going to be a supinated position. Gotta keep in mind that the thumb only has 3 of the edges, while the when you're doing the skeleton for the fingers, it might get confusing because you're thinking, is this 1, 2, 3, 4? Even though you only have 3 joints, but there's long bones in your arm here, in your hand here, that you might be forgetting. And that kind of confuses me too. And I'm doing this really quick, as you can see. I'm not really trying to make a nice piece of art right now. Clavicle, coracoid process goes the other way. Boop, bop, beep. Shadows there. Cool beans, and then I'm gonna put some shadows here too. So what I want you guys to take away from this is how I'm trying to learn, right? I study it, and then I will redraw everything I just studied, try to remember the steps and the names. It's very important to know the names, guys. Very important. If they say, oh, the name's not that important, I mean, I'm really bad at spelling. I can't, like that says scapula. But, you know, clavicle. So, very important to remember the names. I got some reference now for close-up of the scapula. So this is us looking towards like the chest, and if you were to x-ray it out, this is what you would see when you look at the scapula. Then from the side, and some of you might be thinking, this is freaking boring. Well, yes, it can be very boring, but trust me when I say this, I did this so many times in college, so that when I came to drawing anatomy, for instance, when you move the arm, the scapula itself will also move up in this direction. And then if you were to move your arms inward, your scapula would also move inward. So it's important to understand what's underneath, because it will change the shape and the forms of what's on top with the muscles. This is the inside view, and from the back view, we'll just do quicker. Some of you just want to draw badass characters right off the bat. But trust me when I say this, get this stuff out of the way first, and then you will draw all the most badass characters you want. So this page is the scapula, drawing some stuff from memory without any reference. And so once we have this, we got the skeletons out of the way, right? We got the skeleton, we did the front, right? We're learning. Once you got this out of the way, then we can move on to the muscles. Muscles are a little more fun for me personally, because you see them with almost all your characters, right? And the arm is quite fun to draw. So I like to break it into the shape of the arm first. And I know underneath is the humerus, the radius, and the ulna, right? They're inside there. So, what do we do here? Now, we got the shape of the arm, and I highly suggest you get some reference when you're drawing arms for the first time, because they can get a little confusing. Because I know some people just think that it's just the biceps and the triceps, but they always forget that there's a muscle in the middle, right here, called the brachialis. And then you got the deltoids, which you break up into 3. Anterior, which is the forward facing, the medial, which is facing in the middle, and then the lateral, which is at the back. Add some striation to the muscles. Then we got the bicep. Why is it called the bicep? Well, because it splits down in the middle into 2 parts, which is where the word bi comes from. So for 2, got some striation there, easy peasy lemon squeeze. Then we got the brachialis right here. So what you need to remember is the brachialis swoops in from the tip of the deltoid and goes in front of the brachioradialis, which is this nice forearm chunk right here. And then we got 3 heads for the tricep, called the short head, the medial head, and the long head. And then here, right here, there's no muscles underneath that part, it's just tendon. So we got the brachioradialis, the extensor digitorum, extensor carpi longus. Basically all of these muscles here have one purpose, and that's to control your hand. So we'll include those in, and we're going to label these too. Don't forget that, we need to label these. And we've got tendons here. Not many muscles on the hands themselves, mostly just tendons. Alright, so we're going to write this in. These are the deltoids. We're going to call them the delts, right? Anterior, the medial, the lateral. We got the biceps, brachialis, the triceps, which we will go into more detail when we have the other views, but for here, we will just have the short head, which is the part that most guys like to flex in the mirror. Short head of the tricep. Brachioradialis. Radialis because this muscle connects to your radius bone. So it becomes very prominent when you rotate your arm, and it actually helps. That is its purpose. It's to help rotate your arm. The one underneath it is the X carpi radialis longus. I'm not going to spell the whole thing. It is a paragraph on its own, and I don't want to take up most of the page with just writing. And this one is the extensor digitorum. This is the side view. The front view, the pecs go underneath the anterior delts. This is the bicep. I want to just draw the arm as I would normally, and then we'll go over it and add the muscles. So the brachioradialis, right? I'm just going to say it out loud with you guys. The brachioradialis, bicep, brachialis, there's tendons here, short head of the tricep, it goes down there. Let's not forget the band here, extensor carpi longus, there's the ulna sticking out there, and then we got the flexor carpi radialis on the inside here, pronator teres. Interesting. I wonder what teres means, because we have a teres muscle on our back as well. And this is how I want you guys to study when you're doing it. I want you guys to break these into pieces so it's easier for you to digest. So we start with the bones, and then we move on to the muscles. We don't see the anterior, this is the medial, and this is the lateral. So here we see the short head goes into the long head, because it's much longer than this one. And then there's the medial head right here. So remember that shape when you're drawing the back view. I'm accentuating for you guys here, but that's how it is. You're not gonna see any of the bicep or the brachialis right there. I remember the inside of the humerus sticks out, right? I kept saying that. Here, you'll see it here. And then we got the brachioradialis, swooping in, and then the carpes and the digitorum, all that good stuff right here. Pronator longus, boom, shakalaka, there we go. Don't forget the ulna. All right, and then at the back here, we would have the teres muscles, which are the muscles of the scapula. Teres major, teres minor, the rhomboid. Right, and this is basically the scapula. I'm just drawing it a little faintly, but this is the scapula here. And it goes into the trapeze. So, we can do a little bit of a review for ourselves. A lot of the muscles in the arm or the entire body are broken into 2s, 3s, and 4s. And usually their names represent that. For instance, the biceps have 2 muscles that split in half, and then we have the triceps, which are broken into 1, 2, 3 heads. So the short head, long head, medial head. For instance, even the quadriceps, it's quad, so 4. The names of muscles generally have to do with what they do. So like for instance, brachioradialis, it just basically means that brachialis, and it goes into the radial bone, so it becomes the brachioradialis. Extensor carpi radialis longus, it helps you extend your fingers. For the carpi, which are the carpals in your hand, it's also connected to the radial bone. Extensor digitorum, extensor carpi. Extensor basically means anything that's gonna help you extend your hands or extend your legs. We have extensor muscles at the top and the lower half. What you're gonna do after that is you're gonna get some practice runs without any reference. So when you get enough of it drawn and you remember the shapes, it becomes fairly easy. All right. And then the inside of the arm can get tricky, but another thing I like to do is draw bodybuilders because they've worked their muscles to the point where you can see it in full detail. I like to look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and Coleman, all those guys. Yeah, that's the medial head. And you can see the teres muscle and then the lat, that's the pecs. There you go. The clavicle, easy. So the reference I'm using doesn't actually include the inside of the arm, but I know how the inside of the arm looks like. So we're gonna get that. So this is the anterior delts. You got the biceps, right? Pecs. And there's a muscle here called the coracoid brachialis. It's right here. It's kind of like almond shape. So this is the long head of the tricep, and this is the medial head of the tricep right here. And then you got the brachialis muscle. So the brachialis muscle, you'll see it on the outside of the arm, but you'll also see it on the inside of the arm. This right here, comes here, you'll see the humerus, and you see the forearms, the extensor muscles, all that stuff. That's the inside of the arm, right? And then on my Patreon, I'll have all of this in detail for you guys. So that was the lesson of arms. How long did that take? Not too long. Give yourself 3 classes of just doing this. Do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe spend an hour and a half the first day to just learn it. And then the 2 other days you review yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I will be making more videos on different parts of the body, and then we will move on to different subjects altogether. But if you want to move on to the next parts of the body yourself, then by all means go ahead. And like I said before, please head on over to Patreon, where I'll be assigning you some homeworks and sharing some of the references I used and some more that I think will definitely help you along your journey. If you guys have any more questions, please feel free to ask. I love answering these questions. I really like to think about my own process, because sometimes you don't even think about how you got better until someone asks how you got better, and you're like, well, I did this and that. And basically the reason I'm even doing this in the first place is because I really like helping out up and coming artists. I think it's an awesome thing for people to be creative, create new things, create comic books, create animations and movies, games, all that kind of stuff. And I think to have a good base and have a good foundation to build upon is essential to getting good work out there. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it. Please follow me on Instagram at Koteri Inc. Check out my book, Kings of Nowhere. It's on my website. I'll link that down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. And I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1 of Koteri College.